Greetings, denizens of planet Earth, etc. Just to inform you that the society is all a joke. It starts when you're born. You're born in a brightly lit area, typically delivered by Luciferian doctors, into the world of blinding lights, screaming, and maybe you aren't to expect much in the world because you're born, as they say, between piss and shit. But anyhow, come into the world, and if your parents have time, or if a parent has time, then you will be raised perhaps with some affection. Most of it will be probably compensated to try and deal with the madness of the times. So it'll be, for want of a better word childish. But you will be nonetheless raised with some sympathy, perhaps for your innocence while it lasts, and then you'll be sent to school in order to learn all of the accumulated Luciferian nonsense that is Luciferian in energy fields and therefore in the selection pressures on the information and on what people say is true. And you won't be taught anything about how your government functions at any stage of your education unless you choose to specialise in it at some point. Um, because that would be too much for you. You can't know your rights, and if you could, they'd be too complexly worded for you to even understand it. You see, there's a habit, once you have a false money system, inventing money out of nowhere, there's a habit of writing legislation which is disingenuous, and people imitate this stuff, and so what happens is, it's like they're writing for the teacher that doesn't pass anything except it's in his spirit. They have to write stupid legislation in their minds. Because they're twisted and or because other people that they want to read it are twisted. They want their favoured lawyers to read it so they can make water out of wine. It's a class, do you understand? The money, gaming the economy, writing false legislation, getting away with murder in terms of what you write, making cowardly cop-outs for yourself in legislation. It's a charisma, it's a lifestyle, and they perform it shamelessly. And if the economy crashes, we've got the kinds of people in office now that for 10 years have punished the poor and the disabled for the iniquity of the class that they're part of, moving money around to fraudulently, well, it is to avoid taxes, to avoid the basic honour of the system. They have to cheat the system in order to live their lavish lives, and they want you to pay for that, and they want to blame you for that. It must be your fault, and it must be, if they can't blame the poor and the disabled, they will blame a spectre of discrimination against the disabled in order to actually steal from the disabled with an apparent moral right. So anyway, you've got a false financial system with false legislation and a joke of a constitution. It's just like the fact that the Mental Capacity Act and the Mental Health Act don't fit together properly. A lot of the national condition of Western nations is like that. None of it fits together properly, and so it settles in a kind of satanic charisma, which is for the convenience of the Satanists involved. And they often call it care, compassion, governance, stewardship. Okay, so you will not be taught anything about how to actually participate freely in your own society. You will just have information thrown at you, and if you repeat that successfully, maybe show a little bit of independent thinking per se, but you've got to repeat it successfully, and when it gets to real independent thinking, it's just a kind of subjective thing, so it doesn't really get any special treatment. Don't bother writing about history in anything other than the kind of emotional popularity way of it, because it probably won't get through to anybody at best. So you repeat what you're told, and eventually then you'll be delivered to the workplace, or you will go on to go to college and university. And if you have any opinions at these places that contradict the idea that an invasion of third world lowlifes into this nation is a good thing even when it's not supported by the political will, then you could be thrown out. Why? Because the teachers don't want to be thrown out, and they could be thrown out for that. Because why? Everybody listens to people the more angry and the more satanic they are, even if it's without just basis. It's like, oh, they must have a case because they're angry. Oh, let's pretend they have a case because they're angry. And so people that are statistically 3 to 5 times more violently insane are getting preferential treatment compared with native law-abiding citizens. And then you wonder why heathen nations are overtaking us. So, if any of this should stress you out, you might not be able to work. That's one thing. You might be too disabled to work in the first place, but you might not be able to work, and then you've got to go on a false system called universal credit, which is supposed to be a way of making it easy to get everything that you deserve, you see, in terms of benefits. But what it actually is a system of promoting such falsehoods as your job is looking for a job. So that means you're going to spend 30 to 40 hours per week in front of a computer screen, not healthy for most people, looking for work, most of which the jobs are not really there, or you've got to accept the kind of lowest things imaginable. And there's always somebody else that will do those things. So, don't go thinking that it's like you're being choosy. It's like if you want to match it to your skills, which is what they claim to do, then good luck to you because it won't happen. What they want you to do is get involved with the lowest of the lowest jobs, no matter what your temperament, no matter what your condition, and they want you to basically go away. And if you don't, they treat you like a criminal. And the other thing they want you to do is to be willing to work for super corporations in basically 0 hours situations, which means that you have to be ready to jump at the snap of somebody else's fingers. There's no dignity in that. For most people, there's no dignity in that. And yet they want to base the idea of employment figures on it. They say, look, everybody's in work now, and it's because certain people have been desperate enough, desperate enough by the false benefit system, which is vituperative and keeps giving them no money and keeps blaming them and sending them on assault courses of legislation, of information, and indeed of unpaid work as condition of receiving the pittance. And they are said, they're treated like criminals. And here's the thing, they try and get away from it with 0 hours contracts, right? It's like psychiatry. With psychiatry, the actual the process is, we will lie to you, and you must agree with our delusions, or we'll call you deluded, and we will jail you and poison you until you agree with us. And if you get worse, we won't let you go. So you must muster now all your energies, not to worry about your problems, but we've become the problem. We're Satan, and we are really Satan, and you must show us what we want to see, and then we can say, yes, improvement. And then you're too tired after that and too confused to really write any kind of cogent letter, typically, to even have a chance of holding anybody accountable for this. So if society is 0 hours, if society is lies, if a complete absence of understanding of your rights because they're being swamped by a disingenuously complex set of legislations, which just favours a class of parasites. If all of this should get to you, if the third world kind of mania should get to you, the fact you have no security, there's no real law, there are maniacs everywhere, terrorism is being stimulated, the government's trying to steal your rights at every opportunity, you have no real rights even though they call it a safety net, they want to blame you for claiming that safety net, they want to punish you for even trying to have a stable base so that you get homeless and then you have no bank address so you can have no bank account, so they want to kill you basically. At every level of society they're trying to kill you and blame you, and if that stresses you out, it might be in the midst of being made dependent on other people that are abusive because of these situations, these constrictions, or even just from the abuses that I've mentioned. You might encounter some extremes of the experience, you see, and the psyche links with the spirit bidirectionally, so it's a moral phenomenon, and holistic medicine, it should be holistic, it should consider a man in his context, but mention context to a psychiatrist and he'll look like he's become ill or he's been shot because he's insane and he's angry that he has nothing to stand on, nothing that can be believed. He wants your blood, okay? Literally he wants your blood, and he wants to poison you into Parkinsonism, he wants to damage your nervous system, and in a jailing environment, which is stressful, it's double stressful. So in other words, he's trying to kill you, and he wants you to approve that. And then he'll say you have insight. Okay? He doesn't want to hear context. He will typically zone out when you talk about context. He's matching criteria to what he calls symptoms. And most of what are called the symptoms, if not all of them, are not anything deranged per se, but are literally just on the human spectrum of experience and relate to context, and very often are just actually subjective opinions based on what he thinks is too fast for him, or too slow for him, too happy for him, or too sad for him. He is an ape, and is enabled by this habit of ape legislation, which is creating vacuums in our morale, our morality, our innovation, our relative innovation, our science, the way we process science, the way we uphold science, the media, the level of our morality and the way that information is worked with and behaves and is filtered and made prominent is so linked, like it's just the whole thing. And we never look for that. We act like you can actually divorce science from morality, that you can infer morality from science, rather than that you must begin with morality in order to have a correct science. Even from the spirit, the selection pressures on what comes forth, that is the ring of a nation, and a nation is the united agreement of a people in general filiality, but by language, maybe also culture, history, united feeling, typical interests, and or land borders, in a united jurisdiction. They want to act like they're doing you a favour while they rob you at every level of reality. So I've just dissimulated it all for you.